You honestly don't need a history class when you set out to discover Otterstorm, the 100 Years' War. The game sets out to establish you as a mercenary, caught up in the middle of the war, constantly hired by both sides, never actually taking allegiance with anyone. The mercenary ideal. You only side with whoever pays you more. Unless you're me, who always sided with the French when possible for my own really weird reasons. That is possibly one of the most impressive parts about this game, though. I expected that at any time we would be required to choose a side. But for as long as I played, that never happened. Apparently, as you reach the final battle of the game, there is finally a side to take on, but overall the game stays close to historical accuracy. After all, no one really won or lost the 100 Years' War. England removed itself from French restrictions and wiped out almost half of the French population. On the other hand, France drove England out of their country, England lost all of their holdings within French territory, and France retained control over their own country. Now, of course, the developers had to take some liberties with the history as well. Joan of Arc hadn't even been born until long after the Black Prince died. We are the most incredibly long-lived mercenary who has ever existed, since we participate in the battles of, I'm sorry for this pronunciation, Poitiers, Crécy, Orléans, and Agincourt. A human could technically survive for this lifespan 79 years. Now, yes, this assumes that you entered the battlefield as a mercenary as a baby, and that you still exceed the average lifespan of the day by over double. But if that commander was a genius on the battlefield by age 1, and they never got a sword wound that could have gotten infected, and they were never exposed to the plague at any point in their life, and they never caught a cold or dysentery or any other disease that is considered minor today, but it was lethal back in the 13th and 14th centuries, then maybe they could have lived to 79. Oh, and they couldn't have been a woman like my mercenary was, because she would have died in childbirth. But obviously there had to be some liberties with when the battles occurred on a timeline in order to have a cohesive game. It wouldn't have been quite the same if I had started my mercenary work as Lantra, and then after a few battles I suddenly lose her to childbirth, and then I watch some more battles go by in a cutscene as I can't interact until my child is old enough to join in the battlefield too, over and over until we've crossed the full span of the war. So for taking the liberties necessary, the game does actually do a good job representing the war it sets out to emulate. I have to give it props for that. I also have to commend the developers for making both sides sympathetic. In cutscene after cutscene, both sides had a point. Both sides were justified in their concerns. They both could be seen hurting the countryside around them, and they both were doing their best to alleviate the wrongs of the war to the best of their abilities. It would have been so easy to take a side, probably that of the French because they had Joan of Arc, but the developers managed to play a middle ground that makes your role as a mercenary, with the changing sides, feel more justified. So then this game is great, right? Well, you definitely feel impactful. You get to take command of different types of troops all across the battlefield and lead them into the battle to attempt to take the enemy bases. There are enemies all around the base, and some of them have shield icons. If you defeat the units with a shield icon, then you remove one of the base points from their respective home. At 0 base points, the commander of that base will appear at a predetermined location, and upon his defeat, the base belongs to you. Now, you can circumvent the need to deplete all of the base points by having one of your NPC units with their own shield enter the enemy base along with you. This will almost never happen, however. Firstly, the AI is absolutely brain dead. The fastest route between 2 points is winding and involves backtracking and should be walked along rather than run. Even once the AI finds each other in clashes, they need to defeat every single member of a unit. If the leader of a unit is defeated, all of the other members of that unit will scatter to the winds, all of the fight gone from them. But your AI feels the need to chase them down and destroy every member possible. With over 20 units in some groups, that takes so long that new waves of enemies will spawn before they've finished. Launcher didn't have any time for this ridiculousness, however. I would run straight into bases and clear every unit out of them. Then I would run back and forth to the spawn points, quickly eliminating all of the base's points, ending up taking more bases in a day than any other NPC character does if you gave them a week on their own. And as a result, you'll gain fame. Yes, they knew that a downside of the lack of taking sides would be that your work would sometimes feel pointless at best and self-defeating at worst. For instance, when I make it a point to take over everything in an area that I possibly could in one place for the name of France, I almost cost myself a story mission. I was later given 5 days to take a specific point, but this story mission was English only, so I was stuck at one end of a map with 5 days to make my way to the other end through entirely French-held territory. And I am proud to say that after 4 days of desperately working my way closer, I used the 5th day to travel through the backcountry, avoiding enemy troops until I could get inside of the base that I'd been hired to obtain. As the day began to draw to a close, I managed to spawn the base commander and reclaim the area for England.
Now, I cannot allow you to steal all the glory for yourself.
Hey, I am the only reason that we won that battle. I deserve a lot more respect. This statement really held true throughout my playthrough. The amount of points you get on the battlefield and how much fame you get from those points is really not equivalent to the amount of effect you had on that battle. With how much I was changing the tide of battles, with how important I was to every mission that I accepted, I should be in the history books. I should be foremost there. Lantra the base taker. If you wanted a base taken, if you wanted to win a battle, you hired this mercenary and you would have your base taken in a day at the end of a pole arm. But instead, I was a rank 2 mercenary. 2 fame. Basic units running around the battlefield had more fame than I did. So the design created to prevent feeling like you're accomplishing nothing actually managed to accentuate your pointlessness. And over 15 hours, this resentment really started to add up, increasing in frustration more and more. And there are supposedly 50 hours of gameplay in the game, so I can only imagine how annoying things would become by that time. Now you might ask, if there's 50 hours of gameplay, why did I only play 15 hours? For everything enjoyable about this game, there's also a lot of problems. For example, nothing is ever actually explained. I think I was supposed to be upgrading the weapons my unit would be using, but I was still just blowing my way through groups of enemies as long as I used my trusty polearm units. And the map that shows where you're going, where you need to be, and what's going on is absolutely minuscule. I couldn't see anything that was going on outside my direct view. And cavalry. Cavalry is absolutely stupid. They tried to be historically accurate and insist that cavalry is weak to archers, and to be fair, they do kill horse units the best. But archers are also weak to cavalry. See, in real life, cavalry is weak to spears and arrows and weapons like that, because if you hurt the horse goes down. At worst, you'll now be facing the person that was on the horse on foot. At best, they've just had a 2 grand-pound mass of convulsing muscle fall onto them and they're already dead. But in this game, you hit a horse and it kind of stops for a second, then it wheels back off and runs away. If you play an archer, you can shoot them when they are far away, but their charge will knock your archers asunder. If you're a unit that has to attack from close range, though, i.e. anything that isn't an archer, you cannot kill horse units. They will just run away, leaving your units desperately chasing them. They'll wheel around, plow into your units, knocking them aside and down, and the whole process starts again. They don't do much damage, they just literally waste your time. Speaking of wasted time, that just felt like the theme throughout the game. In between each story mission, you'll have to grind absolutely pointless jobs over and over. And honestly, once you have played 3 jobs, you've seen what every job is going to be like. Every now and then, a location will be a little different, or you'll get some kind of mission to escort a unit, but it's rare. If each was a story level, or if it was clear in what way doing these levels was helping to unlock the next story mission, it would be much less boring and repetitive. With all of those negative points stated, though, I didn't stop playing because of any of them. I actually kept on playing because the game was still genuinely enjoyable despite those problems. If I could have made it to the 50 hours with them, I'm not sure, but what actually made me give up was crashes. At about 12 hours in, I had a crash on a loading screen that cost me about 40 minutes in a mission that I had to replay. But I was willing to put up with it because I was still having fun. But the second crash struck around the 15 3/4 hours mark, costing me another hour and a half of playing on a difficult story mission. That frustration, combined with every complaint about the game, and I stopped playing. I have no doubt that I will pick this game back up in the future, just to play some more on my own. If you're interested in playing a surprisingly historically accurate battle sim where you feel like the only competent warrior on the battlefield, then I would recommend picking this game up. But with all of the small frustrations that added up, I'm actually surprised that this game didn't annoy me more.